you for joining us today on Matters of Substance. This is Carly, your host, and today I have with me a very special guest. Her name is Lisa Raftery, and she is a mother. She has been an educator for 30 years. She is a speaker, a blogger, and a writer, and we are so excited to have her here today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Carly. I'm so happy to join you all today.
I appreciate it. So we heard about you through Positive Approaches to Teen Health, which is a local organization here in Porter County that addresses different areas for youth. Like specifically, they address safe sex and do different kind of mentoring programs. And so we heard about you through them, and we saw your lunch and learn that you did, and we had to have you on. And so we're super excited.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So today we're just going to chat a bit about a few different areas, but all surrounding youth. And so if you are a parent listening in today, this is the episode for you. So please stay tuned. We're going to talk about what your youth is saying with certain words, some things that they may not be saying that you think they're saying with the language they're using, being the source of information for them, and having open communication. And so these are all really important topics. And certainly as we talk about prevention of substance use disorder, a lot of it starts at home. Most of it starts at home, in fact. And so we want to make sure that we are armed with tools to help our children stay abstinent, or to delay abstinence if possible from substance and substance use, whether that is drugs or alcohol. So Lisa, why don't we go ahead and chat a little bit? One of my favorite things when I was watching you on the Lunch and Learn that you said was being the source. I think that is such an important message. So can you share what that means to you as an educated person in this field?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I also have raised 4 teenagers, so I love all things teen universe, and I still have 2 teens. I have 2 that are adults and 2 that are still finishing up high school. So, the concept of being their source is that our kids need a source for proper information to set their understanding so they can navigate the teenage years successfully, right? That's our goal. Our goal is to make sure our kids are being mentored and developed so that by the time they hit 18 as adults, they're able to enter in the next season of life successfully. And so, being their source, I was actually talking with the director of PATH. So PATH is all about helping teenagers make healthy choices, like understanding dynamics so they can make healthy choices for themselves. And that's absolutely, most of us as parents, that's our main goal, is just loving our children and really giving them set, healthy understandings of real life dynamics so they can successfully navigate these years. So I was talking to the director, Donna Golab, who's an amazing person. It's really amazing what they do at PATH. And she was sharing with me some research that says that teenagers actually do want their parents to be their source. You are the person who's invested the most in them. You are the one who they know loves them and that they know they can trust the information they're getting from you. So teenagers want us to be their source. Now, they may not want us to be their lecturer. Or their intense teacher, right? But they do want us to be their source, and they want to be equipped, and they want to feel grown up. They want to feel like my mom or my dad trusts me with things as I'm growing and developing and getting to new stages of development and levels of maturity, that my parents equip me at each stage. And it makes them feel very grown up when we trust them with grown up stuff that we know they need to know. So it's so important that we're their source, because if we're not their source, somebody's going to be their source. So whether that's media influences, whether that's cultural norms, whether that's TikTok, it's amazing how our teenagers are so saturated with social media and YouTube shorts and all this information coming their way. And most of the time it's very convincing. So we've got kids getting information from all types of sources, either ones that have nefarious purpose. So you've got groomers giving information. Mm. You have ones that are just different values from what your family has. And so they're getting that information. And they're also getting information from peers who haven't lived any longer than they have. So, we don't want all of these sources to be the main influences on them. We have the opportunity with our teens to be their main source of information. So when I'm talking with parents, often we discuss, they're like, well, how much do I tell them and how soon and how can I really be their source? And I always remind them, okay, remember, because sometimes parents kind of drag their feet on certain topics because they're uncomfortable. Like we as parents are not necessarily super stoked to have to prep our kids about some kind of crazy real life dynamics, whether that be the prevalence of pornography or, oral sex or things that they actually might run into in a middle school hallway. You would think no, or drugs or alcohol. And so a lot of times parents are at a loss. Like, I don't want to rob their innocence. So I always remind parents that, innocent is good, right? Of course, we want our children to grow into teens and to protect their innocence because there's a lot of crazy out there. But while innocence is good, because that just means you haven't experienced it, right? Innocent means you haven't tasted of it, but naive is not good, because if you're naive, it means you really are unaware. And those who are unaware are often blindsided. So as parents, we kind of have that push and pull between being their source so that they may be innocent, but at least they're not naive, so that if they don't know about something, they can't protect themselves. They can't circumnavigate something if they don't even know it exists, or if they're really unprepared to know, real dynamics involved. So, we don't want our teens blindsided, and we have to care enough about our teens to calmly and rationally discuss topics that they really need to have a healthy understanding about during these years. And we really do show them that we love you enough to even push past our own comfort levels to talk about things that maybe it's not really my first choice to talk about this, but I love you enough to make sure you're prepared according to your level of maturity and your stage of life. And so talking about the tough stuff, we communicate a lot to them by taking the time and taking the effort to make them feel loved, that we prepare them for real life.
Yeah. I love that. And so when we're talking about preparing them, making sure they're not naive, when do you think we need to start these discussions? When's an appropriate time to say talk about alcohol or marijuana use? When can we start those discussions, planting those seeds and helping prevent use or the of running into it without having the proper knowledge of how to handle the situation?
Well, I think you can talk about things at all stages of their maturity and level of development in discrete ways according to their maturity and level of development. Let me give you an example. Let's say your 5-year-old comes to you and says, "Mom, what's sex?" So you're like, they're 5. So you say, "Oh, sex is male and female." Okay, you just described a concept that they can handle at 5, right? But then when they're in 3rd grade and they're asking questions about babies being made and things like that, you have to know your own child. And my really rule of thumb with parents is it is way better to come in a little early and set understanding in maybe a general way, set understanding with big dynamics, not like the minutia of it, and in a way that they can understand, like that's enough for now. It's better to get ahead of things than to have them you just don't realize they've already been talking about these things, listening to these things, seeing things, and now they have a wrong understanding that now you're coming in and we're having to reset understanding. Now, resetting understanding is still super valuable. So it's worth doing it at whatever point you realize you need to, but getting ahead of things are important. So for example, your teen better than anybody else. So when are they asking questions? That's the best indicator that they're curious. So if you have a teen who's really, really into boys or really, really into girls, and they're starting to ask questions and they're curious, if you don't start answering those questions, they are going to get them. I mean, heaven forbid they go to Google to ask
Yeah.
some of these questions because they might get inaccurate information or things that really are a little too mature for what they need. I mean, they could be blindsided by a whole nother host of things by going to the internet for their source. So heaven forbid, right? So I would say, having conversations and setting their understanding starts their whole life, but think about what they're going to encounter even in their life. So I know that, my girls, I mean, they were interested in boys, but not super boy crazy. So I wasn't really concerned about them experiencing oral sex in middle school. I really felt like they have a good head on their shoulders. They're understanding other sexual dynamics fine and whatever. But I also knew they were going to a school campus where there's going to be other people who know things and who are talking about things or who could pull you into a hallway and show you things. So even though maybe my preference wasn't to take my 13-year-old daughter and explain something that, I'd love for her to have a better understanding of later, I felt like it behooved me to educate her earlier. So before she went on that middle school campus, I explained the concept and made sure she understood. Now, when you're a parent and you're working with your teenager, remember, you don't have to share everything you know about a topic. So you may know way more about a certain topic and you don't have to share it all. And even when you're sharing your own experiences as a person and maybe mistakes that you made as a young person or whatever, you don't have to share everything in the story. Sometimes you're sharing the heart of the story or an overview of the story, depending on their age and stage of maturity. So I would say earlier is better than later. And when it comes to alcohol or substances, I think you can start relatively early, just talking about, wow, it's so important that we pay attention to what we put in our body, whether that's even sugar. Like you don't have to wait to talk about heroin, or to talk about weed. You can actually start talking about, wow, our bodies are like this amazing chemical machine and what we put in it matters. And you can be talking about that since they're little. And so that's why we hydrate. And that's why we, eat food that fuels us. And sure, we can have some sugar, but, do we need 4 pieces of cake? No, that's going to make us weaker and hurt our immune system and all that. And then you can talk about even when things come up, like chances are they're going to wander in with a movie and people are making bad choices and say, wow, they're not really valuing, their body and what they're putting in because now, and then talking about dynamics, like, when we put in, you get that sugar rush. Sometimes people put other things in their body that make them not think straight or do good things. And so, wow, it's so important. So I think the best thing parents can do is keep things manageable, where your kids feel like your safe space. So you're not the type of parent that is going to freak out about every little thing that can happen, might happen, does happen, that you're just pretty calm about things like, yeah, these are real dynamics and this is why we navigate them well. And then again, they can see you can talk about tough stuff. And then they tend to be more open as they grow up to talk about maybe things that have been tempting to them or things they've even actually experimented with, and they need your help to navigate.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So you're talking about there may be a point when they've already done something and we have to kind of know how to navigate that situation as well. But we know here in Indiana, age of first use is between 10 and 11. And so, yeah, that's like super young. And we want to kind of, to your point, I think it's important that we're making sure we have those conversations kind of, like you said, at their level, but earlier on. I love the analogy I use about like food. Like, what are we putting in our bodies? How is that going to have respond? How are our bodies going to respond? How are we going to respond mentally to that, physically to that? Because that is a way to speak prevention in a very appropriate way at that age. So,
and to also build in a culture in your home that isn't shameful when we make mistakes. So,
yeah.
sort of building that culture of oh man, sometimes we overeat and we ate too much sugar. And it's better if you tell me because then we can, I don't know, make your tummy feel better or
Right,
whatever.
right.
Remember, even when you make a mistake, you can come to me. And that doesn't mean there won't be consequence or we're going to make a change or we're going to do something, but just know that you can always come to me. And I'm basically the adult in your life and I'm going to help you navigate no matter what comes up in life. And just for your kids to know that you are genuinely approachable and safe space with the little things when they're growing up where we call, in our home, we had some little code words we'd use. And one was NBD. So NBD stood for no big deal. So they would be off like they spill something and they're like, oh, no. And I'm like, guys, that's an NBD. So go get a towel and you can clean this up, so they're still going to be the one cleaning up. They're taking responsibility, blah, 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 but not making little things, huge things. Right. And so same thing. I remember one time I caught one of my children watching a movie in bed instead of reading what they were supposed to be doing. Right. And we had certain rules about devices in the room. And so this person was just breaking the rule and kind of pushing the boundary and breaking my trust. Right. So do you make that a huge shameful thing? Or do you say, okay, well, here's what just happened. And so you talk through it. And of course you had a consequence or whatever, but it was in a very loving, empowering, I love you. And you know what you did just now is a very youthful mistake, right? What you did was just an immature mistake. And I see that you don't have the freedom to blah, blah, blah. So we're going to readjust this or that, but it wasn't shameful, right? It wasn't, oh no, you're going to be horrible as a teenager if you're doing this when you're 11, it was more like, okay. We're going to deal with the behavior and we're going to make this adjustment and you're going to apologize or this or whatever. And so as we're training them, kind of letting them know, listen, guys, you're going to become teenagers. And so you're going to have a lot of opportunity to make good choices. And I believe you will. I say to my teenagers all the time, because we've spent so much time talking about dynamics and how the real dynamics are, I always tell them, like, you have a good head on your shoulders. I feel like you have a really good understanding of why you're going to make these right choices. And I really believe you will. Now, that doesn't mean I'm foolish and I just let them have crazy, be put in horribly tempting situations where, I do foolish things, but I'm coming from a place, it's very hard when parents parent out of fear, like, oh, the teenagers are coming and I know you're probably just going to go drink with your friends. It's going to be a nightmare. Other than, I think if we can get ahead of it where they have a really good understanding to try to help them understand the whys so they make good choices for themselves, but then just communicating to them, listen, I'm your parent. No one loves you like I do because no one's vested in you like I have. Like, we love you. We're here for you. And, we as parents, we weren't perfect growing up. Okay. So I don't expect you to be perfect, but I do want you to learn to take responsibility and to think ahead and to, in the moment, pause and make the best choices that are the best for your own health. And, we've made mistakes, your dad and I, in our lives, but we've learned from them and we're stronger on the other side. And so we're here to help you. And, we believe the best in our teens, but we can accept that they're not perfect either, right? So we love them. We're willing to help them work through their mistakes so they can learn from them too. So we constantly communicate to them that if you make a mistake, it's better to just come tell us and we will help you navigate it. Instead of hiding it, trying to fix it yourself, then it just gets more and more complex. You're left alone to deal with your emotions. You're left alone to deal with the mess of it. And it's just better to come tell us and we'll work with you. We love you. And again, that doesn't mean there's not going to be some adjustments and you have to take responsibility for things and all that, but we're here for you. Let us be here for you as the adult, because we can help you navigate whatever life throws your way, and understanding, like, your teen might be in a situation where they never intended to drink and they felt a very intense pressure to do so in a situation they didn't see coming. Yeah. And so are we the type of parent where they could come and tell us? Are we genuinely safe space? And safe space doesn't mean excused behavior. It doesn't mean, oh, you can come and you'll never have to answer for your actions or something like that. But it's more the heart of it. Like, hey, we all make mistakes. And so we all work together to navigate life.
I think kind of to go back to the point of, your youth might find themselves in a situation that they didn't anticipate. Part of parenting that we suggest here is also having a safety plan. So perhaps they are in a
Mhm.
situation where they're like, whoa, I did not know I was going to go to this party and there were going to be there was going to be drinking or alcohol. And now they feel trapped and stuck and like they can't get out in a way that makes them doesn't get judgment from their peers. So we always encourage having like a safety word that they can text their
Mhm.
parents or something. And then parent knows, okay, I got to call you and make it seem like I'm making you come home.
100%. And it's our job as adults to kind of talk them through scenarios
Mm-hmm.
that they might encounter because we have to remember they're 13, 14, 15, 18, whatever they are. Their brains are still developing. They honestly are functioning with an underdeveloped brain. So they do not have the mind of an adult. They don't have the maturity level or the experience of adult, right? They say hindsight's 2020. And we've all been through those years of going, oh, how could I have been so dumb? Well, it's because your brain was still developing, right? So they need us and they really do need practical wisdom. So setting our kids up to win and say, okay, so you might be at someone's house and it's not your fault, but there was there's pot on the patio. Like you didn't know there was going to be alcohol or weed served to minors. So, like, you didn't anticipate. So, just so you know, if you're ever in a situation that you know you need to leave for your own safety, I love that. I think having a safety word that you could text me and then I call you and you, or just grab your phone and call me. And we have a phrase that you say, which now maybe it's, could we pick another movie?
Yeah.
Okay. You call me and say, can we pick another movie? That means because we're going to have family time and you have to leave to come do family time and the parent's going to come immediately. And other things like when you go to a party, no matter backyard party, somebody's house, whatever, drink from the can, not from a solo cup, not from an open container, just giving them practical wisdom to make sure something's not slipped in their cup that they don't know someone's going to potentially do that. They are just going to go celebrate a birthday. They're not thinking about these things. Or reminding them, hey, when you leave the house, make sure you have full cell charge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want your phone not to have charge and you can't call me or you're stuck. Or making sure that they have an Uber account set up on their phone that you can manage so they're not just simply Ubering all over who knows where, like that. But so that if you can't get there, they can't get a hold of you. They can, maybe that makes people uncomfortable with the Uber, but I'd rather have them potentially grab a friend and Uber home than get stuck at a party with bad dynamics happening. And it depends on if you have a 17-year-old, probably fine, right? Maybe making sure that they have money on them. Like, what if you're in a situation and you need to somehow walk somewhere and get home, or whatever the case would be, and creating those exit strategies. And I always tell my kids, feel free to throw me under the bus.
Yes.
So anytime you could say, oh, my mother, she'd kill, this is crazy. And I can't do that because my parents, no problem. I will be the fall guy. No worries. And just communicating that to us or that to them, that we're their advocate and whatever they need to do to use, it's okay. And we've got their back.
Yeah. I love that concept of, making sure they know that we are their support and no matter what happens, we are there to love them and to help them through this crazy thing called life. And, they're going to make mistakes. I think that's such an important point that you're making about they're going to make mistakes. They're young, they're kiddos, they're not going to see everything the way that we do with the experiences that we've had. And they may put themselves in dangerous situations because of that. And so we have to give them the grace to say, you made the mistake. I love you. It's okay. We're going to work through this.
And even talking about the fact, like, listen, you're young. So you're learning and growing. And I know you're not, you can, all of us make mistakes as we grow and learn. But what I'm hoping, what my prayer is that as we talk through things and you have a really good understanding of dynamics, that you're going to make the mistakes that don't leave scars.
Yeah.
Right? That we all make mistakes. We say things we shouldn't have said. Okay, I learned from that. In a friendship, wow, was I really a good friend? Maybe that's why that friendship's not strong or there anymore, because maybe I was not being a good friend. Or, I made a mistake that way. Like those types of immature mistakes are a lot better than I was reckless and doing risky behavior. And now I have to deal with drunk driving or a DUI or an accident or something with my body, like an STD that I have to deal with now. So being really open with them, like, guys, youth, sometimes in a moment, you don't make the right choice because your brain's developing, but the more prepared you are for real dynamics, the more you will make good choices that don't leave scars. Like the kind of mistakes I'm hoping you make are just like youthful ones because you're so intentional with big things. And we always want to provide clear expectations because most of disappointment in relationships is just that unmet expectation, right? And so as parents, we can't really assume they know our expectations. We have to be very clear what we are expecting for their behavior. Like, okay, you are now in X grade. So that means I am absolutely happy for you to continually gain more freedom, have real life experiences, whether that's working a job or going to camp or going on some community service trip, or, I want you to grow and become an authentic adult that can adult at 18. You have a great level of adulting you're ready to step into. I want you to have more freedom, but I can only allow as much freedom as you can responsibly handle, right? So here are our expectations. And so you got to spell it out. Like, okay, whether that's having a boyfriend, like, oh, new territory. Okay, my daughter has a boyfriend. I need to clearly communicate my expectations. Is he allowed to be at the house when we're here? I mean, not here. Is he allowed to, whatever, go up to your bedroom? Or is that a boundary that we're saying? But we can't expect them to know and make the right choice. So we have to explain our clear expectations for the relationships they're in, for the places they go. Okay, I'm happy that you're going to this party, but my expectation is if the parents aren't there, or if XYZ, if there's substance there or whatever, that you're going to have the maturity to leave. Like that's my expectation. So I know you can make the right choice. And the more that we come from a place of believing in them to make the right choice, they're much more motivated to do so. There is just a natural tendency for us to sometimes parent out of fear, and we don't even realize what's coming out of our mouth. Like, oh gosh, like almost like we just know they're going to mess up. Or sometimes our communication is communicating to them that we're pretty sure they're going to mess up with alcohol or drugs or sex or whatever. And so a lot of kids maybe they're making great choices, but they feel so interrogated by their parent. Like, where were you? Who were you with? Are you sure? And they're like, yeah, mom, I'm being honest. Sometimes the way we're communicating is communicating the wrong things. And they feel like, well, I might as well go do it. She thinks I'm doing it anyway. Then I might as well just go get drunk anyway. She thinks I'm going to, or she's constantly doesn't even hardly believe me when I tell her the truth. And I'm just going to go do what she thinks I'm doing anyway and see what it's like. So we have to make sure we set them up to win as much as possible from our communication that, hey, we believe in you. We have been your source. You are prepared for this season. And when unexpected things come up, we've got an exit plan. And really talking about, I think one of the best really strategies is to really be real about dynamics. And that means all of them, right? So when you're talking to your teen about why underage drinking is not wise, there's lots of reasons why I'm asking this of you, right? Like, I'm not just a killjoy. Like, I don't want you to underage drink because I want to be a good parent in front of other parents. Like, I'm actually saying this because it's better for you. And so I know in our path organization, we took April to talk about strategies for communicating with their teens about alcohol use. And I referenced, if you just Google, if you Google, just go onto alcohol.org, there's a lot of articles about teenagers and how to communicate to your teen. And so much good information on there. And in the article, Teen Alcohol Abuse and Treatment Guide, there's just an excellent under 2-minute video which kind of lays it out why alcohol is negative on a developing adolescent brain. So it'd be a very simple way to introduce the topic. Be like, hey, I want to watch this 2-minute video together. And then it kind of lays it out on why, for example, underage drinking can cause damage to developing brain nerve cells, right? And then in that, it can cause problems for teens with forming new and lasting memories, with recalling information, making quality decisions, exercising proper judgment, or maintaining impulse control, right? And saying, that's really important right now. Like, you got enough going on without having your impulses impaired. Like, I know you can make the right choices, but if you put yourself in the situation with a substance, it's harder to make the right choice. So you might even want to make the right choice, but maybe you're unable to do so, or you're going to be taken advantage of. And just kind of sharing the real dynamics of, everyone talks about, getting drunk being fun, but you're putting yourself at risk, because if you can't communicate, or if you're not thinking clearly, or your reaction time is slowed, there's so many things, just having some honest conversations. So on the left here, you're laying out like all the reasons why, like, you love them enough to teach them this so they can make a good choice for themselves, but then being honest about the other side. Right? Mm-hmm. Why are you being honest about all the dynamics, right? So being honest about not just the risks and the dangers, but also being honest about why so many teens do drink. Like, why do so many teens get pulled into underage drinking? And talking about that side of it. Like, yes, drinking can be fun in the moment. That's a reality. You can even make teens feel accepted or grown up, right? It's like, oh, I'm doing something grown-ups do. It's natural to want to fit in. It's natural to want to join in and even experiment with something new. Those are all real things. I get it, right? However, you have a good head on your shoulders, and I believe you can see why making the right choices trumps the reason why a lot of other people do it, right? So like, a lot of times people will drink because they're kind of awkward at a party and they feel uncomfortable. But if they grab a beer like everybody else, and maybe it kind of relaxes them a little, and they feel a little like, okay, I'm accepted, I'm going to fit in. Like, being honest about why they would do that, but say, but I'm telling you right now, the teens you really want to care about, the people you want in your life, they're going to love you and respect you just as much if you have a Coca-Cola in your hand. Mm-hmm. Right. And those are the friends you want anyway. So, and then you can, talk however further you want. But the whole idea is that if we can acknowledge all the dynamics, not just the negatives, drinking's bad, drinking's bad, drinking's bad. Okay. Yes. And it is good they understand why, but also saying, but I see why it's tempting. Here's why it might be tempting. Here's why a lot of kids do it. But now let's put these two pieces together. We got the left side, the right side, and we're going to look at the big picture. And I believe when you understand the big picture, you'll be able to make a good choice for yourself. And I love just pulling them out of that for a moment and saying, listen, these are your years where you get to focus on you. It's such a beautiful time of your life. You get to go to school. You get to decide, what do I want to do as an adult? What do I want to study? What do I want to explore? Do I want to explore photography, videography? Do I want to be an artist? Do I want to work on a sport or dance? Or what are my giftings? Like, what am I going to want to pour myself into? What are my dreams? And just kind of reminding them continually that these are the years to kind of have some fun exploring those things, Yeah. And so if you introduce maybe a sexual relationship in a relationship, or if you introduce underage drinking or smoking weed or experimenting with harder drugs, is that going to take you closer to your dreams for your future? Or are those choices going to actually take you in a negative direction and cause you not to grow, not to get further down the right path? And so as you're talking openly and honestly about big picture, they feel pretty grown up that you're talking about higher level things, and you're you're telling them you're so valuable. I want you to think bigger. A lot of your peers are hurting from this or that or whatever, and they're only thinking about today. What makes me feel numb today? Or what makes me feel happy or alive today? And they're not necessarily thinking about how am I going to get to the tomorrow I really want. But I believe you have a good head on your shoulders and that you can think about the tomorrow you want. And then in every moment you find yourself, you get to make a choice. Am I going to move myself farther towards the tomorrow I want? Or am I going to wander on paths that could really delay me or even really derail me, by harming my body or putting me at risk, even for death, like a drunk driving accident, or, there's just so many elements. And then just always coming back to, I love you. I want the best for you. So anything I require of you or my expectations are because I love you and I want you to have a great future. And I want you to enjoy these years. These years are not supposed to be depressing, pressure. I'm trying to make my friends happy with drugs and alcohol and maybe an unhealthy relationship. These are supposed to be beautiful years where you can just explore and develop your gifts and talents and to the positive.
Yeah, and I love the idea of kind of, like you said, pulling them outside of their right now and having them look towards their future. Because a lot of the time I feel we focus so much in our present, and that's not a bad thing. It's good to be present and it's good to, make choices based on our present. But if we don't take the moment to realize that our present can affect our future, right? The decisions we make right now, if we don't take a moment to step back and recognize that, we can really put ourselves in bad situations. And, it might not even be something that is derailing you completely, but maybe it's 2 or 3 more years before you hit that next goal that you wanted when you could have been there a little bit earlier. And I think that's just really important for parents to kind of remind their youth about their kids, because I think when we look at what we want and we can recognize that I might be moving away from what I want, it's a little bit easier to make a decision based in that kind of concept.
Well, when you're in the corporate world and you want to reinforce your culture or you want to reinforce a new policy or something with you got to get your team members to buy in. Yeah. They always say, explain the why. Focus on the why because you'll get a greater buy-in. Well, the same is true, honestly, for our teenagers. The more that we can explain whys, the greater buy-in we get because we can't watch them 24/7. We don't want to, right? That's the thing is getting our teens to see that we want you to grow up to be amazing adults. We're not trying to hold you back. We want to give you as much freedom as you can responsibly handle, right? So here's the why of what I'm expecting. And here's the why of why it's actually going to benefit your life so that they can learn to make healthy choices for themselves. It's not just to please us, but it's because, well, I want to respect my body, or I deserve better than the backseat of some car with some guy I don't know, I deserve better than, being kind of out of it all the time because I'm smoking pot every day with my parents not knowing, I deserve better. And so I think that's really important. And really, I think a key element that teenagers, remember, they have this underdeveloped brain. So a lot of times to them, they kind of see things as all or nothing. Mm-hmm. So in other words, if I'm not a virgin during these years, like my parents are expecting, right? Because they've been telling me to be abstinent because it's going to get me to my dreams. So if I make a mistake, well, I didn't make it. That's it. Or if my parents are asking me not to get drunk, but I did once. So, well, I didn't make it. So then they think I might as well just do whatever I want, how I want, when I want, because I failed. And so, as adults, we go, whoa, wait, that's not how life works. Wait, wait. It's not like that. It's not like if you get drunk once, now every time you go out party, it's okay because, you already did it once, No, if you make mistakes, it's better to just bring them to your parents, work on it, and you can make good choices starting tomorrow. So it doesn't have to be this all or nothing. Yes, we want them to make good choices, and that's our goal. But if they make a mistake, it's better to just face it and say, okay, well, we got to face what happened and we're going to work through it. But it doesn't mean you have to keep going down a negative path just because you made a mistake. We can correct. There's it's okay to be redirected in life as well. And so I think a lot of our kids feel like, well, I already messed up and I can't admit it. And so I'm just going to keep going down a wrong path. I wanted to share a resource. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, please.
So there's a book called Counterintuitive: What 4 Million Teenagers Wish Adults Knew, or Wish We Knew. It's by Tyler Durman. And he has so many great, really it's called counterintuitive because he's basically saying that as parents, we're trying to get from like one point to the other and walk our kids towards this happy like relationship and them making good choices. But a lot of times we respond in ways that are just intuitive to us, whether that's nagging or our communication methods, right? Whatever we're doing, it's very intuitive to us. So we're just trying this. But what's happening is we're actually like almost moonwalking backwards from our goals because our strategies might feel good to do in the minute, but they're not necessarily effective. They're not necessarily getting us where we want to go, right? And anyway, he has so many good tips for parents and encouraging stories, and it's a great read. But one thing I thought to share here, he was talking about kids that are experimenting with risky behavior. And he was saying, sometimes the best thing we can do for them is just give them a better story. So maybe the story that they're living right now is an unhealthy dating relationship with somebody who's completely unmotivated and taking, is definitely contributing to their bad choices, and maybe that involves substance abuse. Okay. So that's their story, right? But if we can get them to choose a better story for themselves by maybe redirecting their efforts so that maybe they go away for a summer and they get to do something amazing, like maybe they go volunteer at a certain place, or they get to do something, they get to experience something, and then they get to live a better story for a minute, or even out of our own homes. What are they involved in? How can we help them live a better story and start to see things? And suddenly they don't want to be with that relationship anymore because they're living a better story. And he does a great job of actually explaining it in the book. But that's just a really good encouragement to us as parents, that a lot of times if they can see things differently and start experiencing things differently, they'll actually choose the better story. If all they can see is the story they're living, they'll kind of stay there. But just encouraging parents, like, give them authentic experiences that help them see other options in their life. And obviously always, if your student is struggling with substance issues or whatnot, getting professional help is great too. Sometimes as parents, we've hit our wall with what we know to do. And so it's okay to get some professional input and some help and some treatment and whatever our kids need. But helping them live a better story is kind of key.
I love that concept. I think it's important a lot of the theme that we've kind of discussed so far that I think kind of is repeating here is that resetting is okay, right? Like, it's like you said, it's not all or nothing. Maybe in the moment their story isn't great, but we can give them the opportunity to live a better story. We can give them grace if they make a mistake. We can help them understand that right now in the present, we can still change how we move forward, and that's all right. And I think that seems to be a reoccurring theme, and I think it's really important that we kind of take that away as parents and bring that as a part of one of our tools that we move forward with as a parents to youth. We don't have much time left, though I wanted to make sure we touched a little bit on the way that our youth may use language that may, for us as adults, put us either on edge or make us uncomfortable. And so, like, just things to kind of look out for that. Specifically, you mentioned in the Lunch and Learn that I watched about youth using the word why and how it can sometimes feel like combative, right? And that's not necessarily intention.
So when I was prepping for that presentation, I basically went to my teenage daughters and said, hey, what are some things you would want parents to know that when you say it as a teen, what does it mean to you? And so I asked them, and they came up with 3 words, the words like whatever, leave me alone. But the one that we came up together, right? And then the one that they felt was the most important was the word why. And so I just asked that question and said, what do you think? And my daughter immediately said, oh, I would talk about the word why. She said, because, sometimes, Mom, why just means why. Like, I'm not questioning you. I just want to know. And so that was just a reminder to me that, again, a lot of times they just want to know. They're not necessarily being bratty to be like, why? We might feel that because of the circumstance or maybe tone in which it's said. And so maybe we have to talk to them about, okay, well, just, let's watch our tone so that you're communicating just a pure why. But, understanding that they might need to know why, just so they feel peace about what you're asking of them. And so that they get the buy-in and they're like, oh, okay, well, all right, now I get it. And whether they agree or not, at least they can see your reasoning. And this is definitely true for teenagers because they tend to feel they're just starting to get that feeling of I can figure stuff out and I'm entering the adult sphere and I'm really good at arguing my point and my reasons why I think you're ridiculous in this moment. And so it's really important that they can see that we ask things for a reason. We aren't arbitrary. And that we're really asking them to do something because we have a why. And so that was one. Another word was whatever. A lot of times you'll be like, I'm talking to you, and they'll say, whatever. That's very common for teenagers. And really, a lot of times, what whatever means is I can't put my feelings into words, right? And since it's hard, I'm giving up in the moment. That's what a lot of teens are really saying. But it doesn't mean I don't care. Because if you're honest and when they go, whatever, it's not that they don't care about it. It's that they might not know how to really express what they're feeling or why. There's a lot going on in these teenage bodies with hormones and emotions and all of this. So it doesn't mean they don't care. So when they say whatever and just are dismissive, it's so important for us as parents not to be dismissive because it probably does need to be, at the very least, realize, I think I have a hurting teen here and I need to figure out what's going on. And then the other famous one, just leave me alone, right? Just leave me alone, whatever. And, those words really might mean I'm embarrassed or I'm upset, hence my immediate response, not so good of a manner. But a lot of times leave me alone really means, do you love me enough to keep trying to reach me? So they'll say it, but they don't really want you to leave them alone. They really do want a parent that loves them to keep trying and to really help them. They don't know what to do or they don't know what to say, and they really need us more than ever. So leave me alone isn't probably what they really mean.
So when you have that response, when you have the leave me alone, and we can recognize that maybe what that is actually saying is that I need to feel loved or I need you to represent that. How do you think it's appropriate to handle that situation so that you're not pushing over their boundaries of that, like, I need my space, but also not making them feel as if you don't care to engage or to figure out what's going on?
I think that sometimes as parents, we just have to have real discernment on when to push the moment and when to give space, but you can still give space by saying, and later to later time talking about better use of language. So it's not really respectful to talk to me and say, leave me alone, Mom, right? So let's come up with some better ways that you can communicate you want space that's still respectful of me because I'm being respectful of you. And we have a social contract in this family that we all are a part of a family. So we're not going to just say things in rude ways. So we're going to communicate. So, but that's probably not in the moment the best conversation. That would be when you're having a good moment that during the week, that week, be like, hey, I want to revisit what happened on Friday. So you said, leave me alone. And I get it. You were frustrated, whatever. So I tend to say we grace moments and we deal with patterns. So, if they say it once too, and sometimes kids are having a hard time. It's sometimes we just want to demand the right response from them in the moment, you know,
Yeah.
and they can't always give it. Like they're literally going through stuff. So I think it's really important to you're saying the right words. So you're saying, okay, to me, what you're saying is you'd like some space. So we'll talk about this later, but no, I'm here for you. I love you. So I just want a hug so that you know I'm here for you, or something like that, where you're not just letting them always shut you out. And sometimes out of that hug can come some tears and some like, maybe we'll have the moment then.
Mhm.
Or maybe it's that stiff hug that they don't think they're making you think they don't want, but you might be healing wounds you can't see. So just still being loving. You have to be the adult always. So you have to rise above personal feelings. It feels personal when our kids rail, are strong-willed against us, but honestly, they're reacting out of a need to feel safe. And so they want to know we're stronger than them. They need to know we're stronger than them. So sometimes they kind of react in ways that if we're the adult and we handle properly, it shows them, oh, thank God my mom's stronger than I am, because I need to know that.
Mhm.
And so we can show them that, we're not going to be quickly offended with them and go slam our door because we just took it so personally. We're like, okay, I'm not even going to take some of this. I can see what's going on here, and we're going to work together and we're going to fix this. So I would say showing love, affirming. That doesn't mean you accept rude words or bad behavior. Maybe just in that exact moment, you're not going to necessarily demand the right response. You might say, you know what, why don't you go in your room for a little bit and we're going to talk in an hour, or something like that. Where I had a child that if I demanded the right response from him in the minute, he just could not pull it together. But if I would give him 15 minutes, I'd say, okay, I want you to go to your room. I want you to think about all this, and I'm going to make sure I'm calm, and I'm going to come talk to you. And I had a different child 15 minutes later, and definitely much more like, oh, I'm sorry, I lost my temper, and I'm sorry I said this, and much more willing to take responsibility for action than if I demanded it in that minute. So you got to kind of know your kid's personality. You don't excuse bad behavior, but you find strategies that actually move you forward with your goals.
And I love what you're saying here about like you as the adult being intentional and thoughtful about how you're responding, because yeah, it's not going to feel great if you feel like your child is being rude and dismissive to you. It's not going to feel great, but it's not your job to respond based off emotion. It's your job to show them how to handle things as they are maturing themselves, and how they should be handling things when they have children. And the proper way is to give grace and love and kindness and respect.
It is not easy being the adult. So
No.
many times you're like, oh my goodness, it feels personal and it can be very hurtful. I think you have your highest joys as a parent, some of your highest joys, and then you have some of your deepest wounds as a parent sometimes too, because it's easy to take it personally. But if we can see the bigger picture and we can visualize our teens' potential growth down the road, we have to remind ourselves, right? We have to remind ourselves and let the big picture console us that if we keep investing in them, this person at 14 is not going to be the same person at 24 if we keep investing in them. Like they are 14. I have to remind myself they're not 49, coming from this, they really are 14. And so if I keep mentoring and loving them, then, we're not always going to be dealing with these things as we're working on them. And you just have to keep, all of our teens are on a needed journey of maturity. We all went on a journey. Our parents went with us. Some of us made it easier than others, but they're on a path of needed maturity. And if we can look at it with the bigger picture mind, it'll help console us in the harder moments when we have to choose not to take it personally, but that we still deal with behavior, and they need to learn how to be a great member of the family with kind words themselves. But, it's a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know that we are coming up here on about an hour, and that's about all we do for the show. So I wanted to just make sure there were no last impressions you wanted to impart upon our listeners before we close out today.
If I had to give one last thought, I think it would be to make space for the joys of parenting and not just the job of parenting.
Mhm.
because it's the hardest job on the planet. I mean, obviously, it's the most rewarding job. We love our children, but just to make space for the joys, like going to get ice cream, like that. Not every bit of your communication with your kids is corrective, right? That you're putting a lot of relational time on the not teaching side or the intentional mentoring side, right? I know one big game changer for our family in a fun way was our family text feed. So we throw memes on there constantly. We're just laughing. It's not where we correct we're just enjoying each other, and game nights and going on hikes and making space for the joys of the family, and not just the hard work you're trying to do to churn out responsible adults. So kind of taking time to enjoy the sweet parts and to really savor the moments. They say having children, it's long days, short years. And boy, that's even true in teenage universe, right? Sometimes there's some long days, but wow, they're short years. You really get through it and you realize, oh my gosh, my son's 22 and my daughter's already 20 and they're adults now and I only have two left. So you're trying to savor the good parts of family and what you're building together, because the more you're building, I read in a parenting book, the more deposits you make, the easier it's to make the withdrawals, right? When you have to deal with behavior or make corrections or hold them accountable to responsibly manage freedom and things like that. So I would
I love
say
that.
space for the joys.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you joining us here, and it's been wonderful chatting.